and another effective one. Matthew breaks a tackle, breaks another, gets a block. There are no flags and the race is on. And Matthew goes 90.
Burrow with the snap. Here comes the blitz. Burrow steps away from it, throws, catch made! Justin Jefferson has it at the 38, racing down the far line, sideline, 10-5, touchdown, Tigers!
Another play fake by Burrow, and a deep strike, and an open receiver, Jamar Chase, another touchdown!
Daniels pulls it, takes it himself, he's got the sideline! Jane Daniels off to the races! And a bang back inside, he takes it to the house! 85 yards for Daniel!
Go ahead and say it, Ed.
Go Tigers!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of the Geauxld Standard Podcast. I am your gracious host, Doe. Thank you so much for joining us on this afternoon or this evening, whenever you're watching it. So gracious for you to be here. Look, this is going to be your number one source for LSU news, updates, and unsolicited comments from your boy. So make sure you jump down there and turn on the notifications. Make sure you jump down there and smash that like button for your boy. And make sure that you're subscribed to the Geauxld Standard Podcast, where we love purple, but it is all gold, baby. All right, so today we're going to talk about LSU's running back room. Now, this is a revamped room from last year. Coming into the season last season, you had Caden Durham, you had Harlan Berry. Potentially, we're going to have JT Lindsey. LSU was still feeling good about Trey Holly's situation at the time. And you also had Caleb Jackson. So 5 backs that they expected coming into the year last year. We know what happened with Trey Holly's situation. It was unresolved. He ended up going to Southern, I think, or one of those lower tier Louisiana schools, and actually having a pretty good year. And he returned to that team this year. JT Lindsey, we know what happened with the situation with him, what the accusations was, and what he was accused of. So he was not permitted to come back to LSU's team. So LSU basically had last season Trey Holly, Caden Durham, and Caleb Jackson as their running backs. Caleb Jackson, who left the school, never really figured it out. I mean, we saw flashes of his freshman year, but we never really saw those same flashes after. I wonder if Caleb got a little bit too heavy. His vision wasn't the best at times. But there is some untapped potential there. I'm not sure where he went or where he transferred to, but he did end up transferring. And so you're left with this season, coming into this season, the only returning 2 running backs on the roster from last season are Harlan Berry and Caden Durham. Now, let's talk about Caden Durham first, because we're going to talk about Harlan Berry. Obviously, look, Caden Durham was a former top 100 player in his class. I think it was the 2024 class. Last season, he had 106 carries for 505 on the yards, but his freshman season was spectacular. He came in as sort of a reserve role. Back in LSU had Logan Diggs and Josh Williams, and they had this amalgamation of backs. But I think everybody knew that Caden Durham was the best back on the team, and it took him breaking out in sort of the South Carolina game and taking over the reins from that point on. But his freshman season, he had 753 yards, 6 touchdowns, 28 catches for 260 yards, and 8 total touchdowns. So coming into the next season, which was last season, hopes were high. A lot of people, including me, thinking that Caden would be a 1,000-yard rusher, potentially an all SEC back, and it just never panned out. And I don't know why. I'm going to say injuries. I don't know that for sure, because I don't know if they ever came out and said he was injured. He looked slower than what he did his freshman year. I mean, we saw Caden Durham at times his freshman year would break through the hole, and he broke away, and it was a touchdown. And I was actually at the game when he got hurt his freshman season against South Alabama, I think. We were there, and one of the guards fell on his foot as he scored or something. He just hasn't been right since then. So, we're looking for a bounce back in coming in the next season from someone like Caden Durham. I think it's needed. I think he's going to be a huge piece of this team. Lane Kiffin likes to run the ball, regardless to what people say and what people tell you about Lane Kiffin and his offense. People sleep on that. He likes running the ball. Look at what the guy did over there at Ole Miss this year. His name sweeps me, and I said it a million times already on this podcast and on this channel, but I can't recall his name. He led the SEC in rushing, and I think maybe led the SEC in touchdowns as well. So if you look at that as the blueprint of what Lane likes for his offense, you think of Lane, you think of passing, you think of quarterback, and you think of wide receivers. But really, he really likes to run the ball and establish the game, establish control of the game. And to do that, I don't think we have one bell cow, Keywan Lacey. That's his name. Keywan Lacey. So we don't have a Keywan Lacey style powerhouse, ride him 25 times, pause, but giving him the ball 25 times running back on the roster. So I think you're going to see a combination of Caden Durham and a combination of Harlem Berry and a combination of another guy that we're going to talk about coming up. But Caden's needed. If we can get Caden back to that 2024 form, that 2024-2025 form, I think you got a really, really good back that's going to do a lot for your team. He's really good out of the backfield. We didn't really use him a lot out of the backfield. That's one of his best aspects is his hands and his ability to be a weapon out of the backfield. So, yeah, I mean, if Caden Durham is healthy, you have yourself proved it his freshman season that he could be a reliable and critical piece of an offense as a freshman. We just need to get him healthy. We just need to get that burst back. We just need to make sure you can stay on the field and be durable. And I think you'll like what you see out of Caden Durham next season. All right. The number one running back, in my opinion, the guy who's going to be the RB1 is going to be Mr. Harlem Berry. You know who he is. If you're watching this, you know, as an LSU fan, who Harlem Berry is. We've been hearing about him since his 8th grade year. High school phenom. He was the number one rated high school running back in last year's recruiting class, 2025-2026 recruiting class. And yeah, it was a 5-star player, and the talent is there. This season, he had 491 yards, averaged 4.7 yards per carry, and had 2 touchdowns. And that's with the horrible rotations that we saw out of Frank Wilson. Go back and watch those videos and my reactions to the game. You were there. Again, if you're an LSU fan, you were there. You remember the stupid and crazy rotations that Frank Wilson did. And I'm glad that Frank Wilson is at Ole Miss now and not at LSU anymore. But yeah, there was some just questionable rotations, questionable times where he took Harlem out of the game, questionable times where I forgot about Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson was also the other back last season, but he's transferred as well. But there were times where Juwan Johnson would be in the game, and I'm saying this should be a Caden Durham play. This should be a Caden Durham. This should be a Harlem Berry play. This should not be a Juwan Johnson play. Your 2 best backs on the field, they are better athletes than Juwan. They're more talented than Juwan. And this is no diss at Juwan. I'm just giving the credit where it's due to Caden Durham, who was a top 100 guy coming out of high school, and Harlem Berry, who's the number 1 running back in his high school class. Obviously, they're on a different level than Juwan Johnson. But there were times where just the wrong type of plays for Juwan and the wrong type of situations. And my God, let Harlem Berry fumble. I forget what game that was at the end of the season. Was it Oklahoma game or it was a bowl game where Harlem Berry was snapping and going off, and then he had 1 fumble, and then we literally didn't see him the rest of the game, like an entire half. So hopefully coming into this season, well, I say hopefully, Kevin Smith's not going to do that. He's got a phenomenal running back coach now, one that went to the league, played in the league, one that has a history of producing great backs. Look at what he just did with Keywan Lacey. We didn't know who Keywan Lacey was before last season. So you always have to keep that in the back of your mind with the types of coaches that you have. And I've talked about it on previous pods and other pods. But the type of coaches that you have, look at what they've done with the talent that they had at Ole Miss. Now give them a guy who's the number 1 running back out of high school, who's, a phenomenal high school prospect. People always comped Harlem Berry for Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush is probably my favorite non-LSU player of all time. You got him, Percy Harvin, and a couple other guys that are my favorite guys, but specifically Reggie Bush is probably my favorite non-LSU player of all time. I don't quite see the juice that Reggie had because Reggie was literally like a human joystick. I don't necessarily see the straight line speed just yet. They tell me it's there. We haven't really seen a lot of situations where Harlem's had that opportunity, and some of it's opportunity, some of it's the line not blocking well. But I don't see Reggie quite yet. Could he become something like that? Sure. Lane coach Reggie, so he knows. I see more of a Jamal Charles type, but I don't quite see the lean with Jamal either. But I would comp him more towards Jamal Charles as opposed to Reggie Bush. But we know what Harlem can do. We know what Harlem can be. The potential is there. Sky is the limit for him being, in the lineage of the next great LSU running back, right there with the Leonards and Darius Geis and those type of guys. I think Harlem Berry could be as good as Darius Geis. Yes, absolutely. I don't think he could be as good as Leonard Fournette because Leonard Fournette is a generational prospect. He could play in the NFL, in my opinion, right out of high school, probably. So I don't think he's that level, but we saw what Darius Geis did at LSU. He had phenomenal career at LSU, and due to some off the field reasons, he just never had a real good shot to make it in the league. But Darius Geis had go back and watch film at Darius Geis at LSU. He was a great back. The vision, the spin moves, the juke moves. I mean, he was light on his feet, and I see some of that in Harlem Berry. I see some of that similar type of game. But going into the season, it's going to be imperative on Harlem to put some of that weight on in the offseason. It's going to be imperative for him to bust his tail in offseason workouts to bulk up to where he needs to be. Watch that film. Make sure he protects that ball. And I think you've got potentially a star type of player on your offense. I say going into the season, your superstars are going to be Harlem Berry and Trey Green. I'm sure somebody else is going to develop, and who knows? I think the wide receiver room is going to be more of like a combined, conjoined effort. I don't see a number one Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase type of guy. So I think they're going to do it more so as a unit. But I think as far as you tell me to circle the impact guys, I'm circling Harlem Berry, I'm circling Trey Green. So, yeah. But with that, LSU did bring in 4 backs out of the portal. I have some of their numbers here. First, they brought in Racine Guillory, who transferred from Utah. He was a former 3-star from Texas. I think he was a higher rated 150 type of player in his class, and he bumped up in a class, and I think he became like a 3-star guy. But he's out of a big program in Texas. He only has 1 recorded carry for 4 yards. He was a freshman this past season. All these guys, I think, have only had Dylan Jones has had multiple seasons, and Rod Gainey had multiple seasons. But Racing Guillory, 1 season over at Utah, a good program, tough-minded coach over there. So we there's something there. The thing with this LSU running back room is going to be there's a lot that we don't know. And that's also good because we can learn new things and learn new players and see players become things that we had no idea they were. But also at the same time, it's a lot of improvement stuff. We're going on measurables. We're going on what ifs besides Harlem and Caden. After them, everything else is a question mark. So Racing Guillory's 3-star from Texas, like I said, transferred over from Utah. Then we had Rod Gainey, who transferred in from Charlotte. And Rod had 74 carries for 260 yards and 1 touchdown last season, along with 16 receptions for 44 yards. And then in 2024, he had 10 carries for 34 yards, 1 reception for 13 yards. All right. We also had Dylan Jones, who I'm a huge fan of. I saw his highlights. If you're an LSU fan, you're going to love the way this guy runs the ball. He was projected to be the starter at one point at Wisconsin. But he comes in with 2025 stats of 76 carries, 300 yards, and 2 touchdowns, along with 9 receptions and 21 yards. And then in 2024, he had 16 carries for 88 yards. Physical downhill runner. He's going to bring the wood. He's going to make the tacklers feel it every time they hit him. You're going to like this guy in the LSU offense. So if it's going to be 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, I think you're going to see Dylan Jones in the game running that ball. And then lastly, we got Stacey Gage, who was a former highly recruited guy at high school. I think he went to IMG Academy, if I'm not mistaken. But last season with UCF, who he transferred from, he had 13 carries for 63 yards on a touchdown and 1 reception with 5 yards. So yeah, you've got 2 guys you know pretty much a lot about in Harlem Berry and Caden Durham. Harlem needs to bulk up. Harlem needs to make sure he holds on to the ball. Caden needs to get healthy. Maybe slim down a little bit. But I feel like you know what you got there. That's going to be your 1-2 punch. I think Dylan Jones is going to be your third back. Dylan Jones is going to get some carries in this offense. I'm telling you guys, do not be surprised to see Dylan Jones get some big-time carries in this offense because he brings the wood, he brings the lumber, he brings that toughness. He's the back that most resembles what Lane Kiffin had in Keywan Lacey over at Ole Miss. So do not be surprised if you see him in a lot of games, a lot of situations, critical situations, and he has the ball in his hands. So, yeah, there you go. I appreciate y'all joining us on the podcast. This was just a little bit of a deep dive into LSU's running back room. I'm doing position by position breakdown. I've already done one for the quarterbacks. Make sure you go back and check that episode. This one was the running backs. The next one will obviously be the wide receiver group, which will be fun. We'll have a lot more bodies to break down, a lot more stats to break down as well, and a lot more guys to talk about. But ladies and gentlemen, before you head out, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that notification button. Make sure you hit that like button. Matter of fact, smash that like button. Make sure you share the pod. Make sure you're following me on all of my social media platforms. I'm most active on TikTok. I'm there usually multiple times a week along with YouTube. But again, this has been the Geauxld Standard Podcast here where we love purple, but it is all gold, baby. And I plan on being your number one place for LSU news, updates, and unsolicited comments from your boy. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great evening, a great night. Tell them I said play next.